Welcome back to Secret Leaders. I'm Dan.
I'm Chris.
And today we're going to be talking about a few different things coming up in the sort of businessy sphere. So most important, most exciting potentially for business people is President-elect Trump is getting inaugurated shortly.
He certainly is. How are you feeling about that?
Do you know what? I have gone through a journey of that myself personally. Like last time he was president, I thought that was going to be the worst thing in the world ever. And I was one of those hyperbolic people with fear over it. This time round, I'm actually quite excited and think that there's a lot of evidence from history to say that he was actually a pretty decent president across a lot of the things that mattered. And I think the difference this time is he's been very democratically elected and given an opportunity to perform. And I think like this, whoever is in power, including this current Labour government in the UK that I think is useless, you've got to give people time. Yeah. And they've been democratically elected, so give them time and give them space and opportunity to do the thing. So I think about that with Keir Starmer and Labour in the UK. I think about that with Trump in the USA. Let's see.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly going to be, I would say something in a second about politics, which is, I don't even know how you're going to react to it, but it's certainly going to be a more fruitful business, commercial environment in the States now because of Trump. Like he, whether you like him or hate him, he is certainly bringing a lot of like commercial optimism.
At the same time, the stock market did really well under Biden. So it's like really interesting, isn't it? Because it did its best ever under Biden and everyone was like, it's going to, be terrible for the economy. But the thing is, inflation was horrendous. And I think that is one thing that is interesting that he is going to have to try and tackle. There's two ways to bring inflation down. You can literally raise interest rates, or you can grow an economy through productivity. And America has the biggest companies in the world, probably also the smartest people at the top tier in the whole world with the most forward-leading technology companies in the world. So if any country can grow itself out of a productivity issue, it's America.
Yeah, and I think it's a long time since I think that the populace voted based on necessarily the immediate economy. Just because it's always out of whack with the actual political cycle. So it's a fucking joke anyway.
It's true.
But I would say weirdly, for someone who did like politics at uni and am obsessed with politics, I would say for the last few years, I almost made a deal with myself that I would not concern myself with any politics in any country moving forwards because it would just take up thinking time, stressing time talking to others, debating it. Whereas I've taken like a whole view of like sole focus on my own goals for the last few years. I'm not saying that's going to be the case forever, but I really wish more people would like not be so obsessed about like politics and like so obsessed about religion, these big fucking questions. Like a lot of the advice I wish I could give to people is like, be the change you want to see in your own life. Like focus
control what you can control.
Control what you can control. I mean, like that should be written at the top of the piece of paper about how you improve your life. Like don't moan all day about politics when your own life is not in order. Like fix the shit at home and then maybe have an opinion on that.
Also, if you look on social media, most of the people that opine on politics, my God, are they quite obviously the problem in the world?
Yeah. Do you think that's true? I do.
On both sides of the spectrum, they are just toxic people.
I do think really articulate people also have a very, very, firm view on politics and the rest of it. But
totally, but they also have their own issues and how they're toxic.
Yeah, it's
quite
true.
Often.
Most of the reason that I can, honestly say that I couldn't have made it to any rallies is that I have a job, and that's the thing that gets in the way.
It sounds ridiculous, but yeah, it seems to be really true. There's always a very high disproportionate amount of people who
have a lot of spare time.
Do you know, like, it's a very separate thing, but like...
I'm so cynical there. So.
No, but do you know, a very separate way of looking at this is my mum worked really hard her whole entire life. Was a really, really intelligent woman with like lots of like interesting opinions, but like, thoughtful and busy and all this kind of stuff. And my dad passed away and she's getting older and, it's been 10 years since that and all this kind of stuff. And over that period of time, last 2-3 years, I've had to like sit down and have conversations with my mum. It's not about politics actually, but like gossipy stuff. And it literally, I had a long conversation with her where I realized that...
What are you gossiping about?
What she gossips about.
Oh.
The void in her life, the space taken up by not having my dad around, by not being engaged in full-time work and having like less of a social life, she's filling up that time with sort of like meaningless or what she believes is meaningful information that really isn't. It helped me understand actually a lot of the people who are at these protests or are at these events or at these marches or whatever they are. They have very often, they have very little idea what they really stand for. They stand for the new current thing because they actually don't have a job. They've got nothing else to do. Yeah. There's only so much Netflix you can watch.
I can help.
And a lot of them aren't half as principled as you think because they'd be at the next thing.
I can help most of them with the outcome of their lives by just saying that it's not important to have an opinion on everything.
That's exactly true.
That's like write that down at the top of the piece of paper about like how I'm going to improve my life. You don't need to have an opinion on every single political issue that's happening in the country right now because most of the time you won't understand it and you certainly won't have any power over it. So if you have power over yourself, work on yourself.
So a really good book I read last year that I loved and unusual philosophical teacher, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Be Useful.
Yeah?
It's a really good book.
Did very well, that book.
It's excellent.
I haven't read it.
Genuinely?
I was at my publishers the other day, and they were like, this actually... Because a book can sell two ways. It can sell really well up front, and then it can sell really well by being handed on. Apparently, that book is like viral, as in people hand it to each other.
Yeah, and I would say, as someone who loves Stoic books, it is essentially more of the same. All these books are the same, really. If you read Marcus Aurelius, or you read The Power of Now, or you read Ryan Holiday... It's all the same. It's all just basically Marcus Aurelius repackaged. Stephen Bartlett. All of it is Stoicism. Just repackaged. Almost all of it, right? And so is Be Useful. But it is exceptionally simple, modern advice for men, mostly, about how to show up in the world. And to exactly that point, you don't need to have a political opinion on everything. You don't need to go on marches and virtue signal absolutely everywhere. Just figure out how to be useful to the 2 or 3 people in your life that matter most. And you'll actually create a really great ripple effect from that. And that's essentially the whole summary of his book. And it's very, very good. You should read it.
I got myself in a situation where I was hanging out with some friends of friends, and they were telling me about like how wrong and screwed up the world was. And I was like, what's my favorite question at the moment, rather than what do you do, is like, what's keeping you busy? And one was like, I'm sort of in and out of work. I'm kind of working as an usher in a cinema, and the other one was like not working, but they were so informed of everything that was going on in the news. And they were like, what about you? And I was like, honestly, I don't know enough about these issues to give you an informed answer. But like, I really have my shit together. I am like so present for my partner and my family. And
I saw an excellent meme literally yesterday, which was, all right, I'm done with being an expert on Syria. Finally time to move into my South Korea era.
Exactly.
It's like, exactly. Like, yesterday, you knew everything about Ukraine. Today it's Syria, and tomorrow it's South Korea. How incredibly broad your depth of knowledge must be.
It's actually so funny. It's like the people who change their Facebook profile picture to like every crisis that's going on. It's like, I'm going to solve the world by uploading my profile picture. And you're like, oh no.
It's so true. Anyway, so
I don't even know what we're talking about.
Do you know what though? Like, there's actually it's a sort of irrelevant. It's a relevant point.
I'm glad.
No. There's.
I've just forgotten that we've actually got the notes here as well. Anyway,
I think there's a relevant point here, which is, either way, like a lot of this flip-flopping on political expertise, etc., etc., etc. The last few years has been a little bit psychotic and manic. And whether or not you welcome Trump in and his inauguration his policies and his cabal of people that he's bringing into the White House, whether you're
better
for
this
it or
time,
against
though.
it. Huh?
Much better cabal of people this time.
Much better. And if you're an entrepreneur, you would naturally feel quite excited about having Elon Musk and Vivek like in the White House on that. A 2-year project as well. That's not a forever project, right? It's a short-lived project of DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. And again, coming back to how taxes work, right? In the UK, we become so like just comfortable. Just tax me when I sleep, tax my business, tax my house, tax me when I die, tax me when I'm living, tax my food, tax my water, everything. You're like, that's just life. Okay, fine. That's how the welfare state works. Fine. Elon Musk did a whole bunch of tweets the other day where he's like, people forget that is your money. And the way through a lot of this stuff isn't only just taxing you for everything. It is making the spend of the money they're taking more efficient. That is the other way that you can do it. So it's like, I'm not saying that people who are poor and on benefits and are disabled and need the money shouldn't get money from the state. They should. They don't need all this money people who are in charge of the money should be less callous with the money that they're taking from tax collection and make sure it is efficiently spent. And
I mean, it will be a really interesting thing to observe.
It would be incredible.
Like,
if he manages to pull it off, it will be the perfect case study in the world, which is you don't need to tax everyone as much as you do. You just need to make sure that you've got responsible people in charge of spending it.
Yeah. And I don't know if we've ever really seen much like modern day entrepreneurship
In
so
the White
high
House.
up in politics.
I don't remember. I mean, we would probably be too young to know, but no, I don't think so.
Because like Trump's obviously an entrepreneur, but again,
Well,
like
no one really respects him as a
super
businessman.
questionable.
No one really respects him
But
as a
Elon
businessman, but
Musk-
everyone respects
Elon Musk
Musk.
is out and out probably the best entrepreneur ever.
Yeah.
And so that will be fascinating to see him
100%.
actually cutting productivity, focusing on outcome, automation, etc. Yeah, technology.
So, really interesting. One of Trump's things, again, is, there are so many different ways to grow the economy, to make America strong. And one of those ways is tariffs. What do you think about tariffs?
Managing international money used to drive me crazy until I found Wise Business, the account for doing business in other currencies. I can hold money in different currencies and only convert when the rates are good. No more rushing to exchange at bad rates or losing money to outrageous fees. And my team handles all the payments themselves. I don't have to micromanage anything. They have their own logins, set their own limits, and I just keep an eye on things from my phone. One simple account lets you pay and get paid in over 40 currencies. No hidden fees, no marked up exchange rates, and it connects right away with your accounting software. Whether you're paying vendors or suppliers in Europe or you're getting paid from Australia, it's all easy. And that's what I love about Wise. It takes this complicated thing and makes it simple. Your money's always secure with 24/7 protection, and you can see exactly where everything is in real time. So, to learn more about how you can use Wise Business to save time, money, and stress, visit wise.com/business. So one of the things, obviously, Trump is very pro is tariffs to make, I suppose, American businesses much more competitive with overseas labor, effectively. So what do you think about that as a general rule?
I think I heard him on a podcast say tariffs is the most beautiful word in the English language, and it's not used enough in business. And I think on the basis that we don't really use tariffs really in the UK, I can't profess to be an expert on how to expect the outcome of tariffs working. But on a fundamental basis, what Trump did do, so let's talk about the Middle East last time. What he did very well last time with the Middle East, why I actually do think that he could be a good thing for the US and the world. Obviously, right now the Middle East is in flames. And when Trump was in power, they got unbelievably close to the Abraham Accords and signing peace treaties across the Middle East, right? That was done through business deals. And that was done through people in the Middle East wanting to have really lucrative business deals with America because it's the largest economy. One thing he's exceptionally good at is this concept of art of the deal and understanding that...
Which he didn't write.
Right. But on a fundamental basis... Different point.
Yeah. I just heard that the other day.
He didn't write... Who wrote that?
He had a ghostwriter.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, that's different. Everyone has a ghostwriter.
Yeah, it's true. But...
So, yeah, on a fundamental basis, he understands that America has unbelievable purchasing power and unbelievable strength, and the US currency is the strongest currency in the world. And so he uses that to negotiate his way through any problem. And the Abraham Accords almost created peace in the Middle East, quite possibly could do again. I think that is a microcosm example of how he intends to use tariffs, right? He intends to basically say the American economy is the biggest in the world. Because of their opportunity with both the US dollar and technology businesses, they can still be the fastest growing. They can literally grow themselves out of pretty much any problem because they have these unbelievable businesses that are all based there. The future of the world is essentially AI, and almost all of the AI businesses are in the Silicon Valley. So on a fundamental basis, like America can totally just grow itself. Nvidia is there, like all of them are just there. So
we really have a chance here that the new wave of businesses aren't necessarily product businesses, which is a fascinating space.
Yeah, absolutely.
For the US now to be in, actually.
He has so much power. He's using that power to say that if you don't do business with the US the way that we want to do business, we're going to tariff the shit out of you. I'm going to make it so much more expensive for you to do business with the US. And most countries can't afford to take that risk.
Yeah, it's too much. It's too much to lose, yeah.
I think that's at the end of the day, he's got to do something, and that's just showing American strength. He did a tweet the other day that was about the US dollar and BRICS countries, right? So that's obviously Brazil, Russia, India, China. And essentially, they want to create another alternative currency to the US dollar. So it's like, if you think we're going to do that, no problem, 100% tariffs on your products, 100%. So we'll make it literally impossible for you to basically do any business with the US.
Yeah.
It's kind of the only lever he's got, but he's going to exercise it because whilst you are the most powerful country in the world, you can totally flex your muscles and do that. And once you've lost that opportunity, you can't do it anymore. So even though a lot of these things look psychotic and the tweets are pretty badly written, I don't think he has a ghostwriter on these tweets, I'll put it that way.
No.
Not the way he uses caps and grammar, but I think he's actually using the leverage that he has in a really smart way, and I would be very bullish on the American economy right now.
Would agree.
Obviously, one of the things that happened with Trump, not personally happy about it because I sold all my Bitcoin at the bottom to buy my house. My wife's very happy. I'm constantly disappointed.
But you got to buy a house.
But I'm homed. But, she always says, you can't live in a Bitcoin. Well, right now, I feel like I really bloody could. Anyway, I do technically live in quite a few Bitcoins. Him doing that and then also him becoming president and then also appointing David Sachs, the head of crypto and AI, it's just flying. So crossed 100K.
And that generally is because with more positive view towards crypto in general in the regulatory space.
And him saying he's going to get rid of the SEC chair, who's then resigned in advance. It's all just so bullish for crypto. Yeah. And he's very pro Bitcoin and very pro crypto.
And so, we've had a massive surge.
Massive surge. So congratulations to you and all of our subscribers and everyone except for me. I'm so happy for you all. My house has remained the same value. Never mind. I'm obviously totally over it, as you can tell.
Dan's very over this.
No, I'm so over it. It's fine. Yeah. So, what do you like? All this Bitcoin you've now got, all this unrealized wealth. There's a lot of stuff going on. I don't know if it's your Warren Buffett's letter about him leaving money behind for his kids. You're going to leave all your Bitcoin behind for your kids? What's your policy on this?
I mean, my only view, because I took the view that I knew nothing about it, and so that's why I would hold it. As in, I wasn't going to trade it in and out because, again, like if you think about how I often think about like work and business, anything that occupies mental space should be shelved. And so like that's actually works perfectly with crypto. So rather than like fucking around with it, trading in and out of it, trying to be complex or fancy with it, I pretty much just held anything I ever bought. But I suppose in terms of like money down, I mean, the Buffett thing is fascinating. It's a very interesting letter if you read it, which is like, we gave 10 million to each of our kids, and that's when his wife died. And then he always thought that his wife would distribute their money, but now he is distributing their money. And so originally he was like, I don't know if my kids can run off the foundation, which is like 99% of his wealth. And now he is actually handing over the reins, as it were, of that organization to his kids. He says that they're ready, but technically speaking, they're not giving them that much money, but they are giving them the shares. And so they do have control over the foundation. So it's an interesting one. I mean, one of the things that my wife and I talk about is that if we're ever lucky enough to have children, we would be very cautious about how we bring them up now that we have been very successful. Yeah. Because now that we can fly anywhere, do anything, stay in anything, buy anything, that because we've worked for so long and so hard to get to this place, we feel like we always deserve it. And to an extent, maybe you could make the argument that we do. But when you have a kid, they just grow up in that. Yep. And so it's very hard. So like, do you leave your kids loads of money? I think that at least I would try and bring up my kids to not have lots of money. And it almost be a nice surprise if they ever found out.
It's a constantly complicated question. Yeah. Like so many different philosophies on this. But like Warren Buffett he's the 7th richest man in the world, I think. He'd be number 1 if he hadn't already have given away so much of his wealth anyway. And kind of the problem is, like, ultimately giving his kids that much money isn't necessarily going to change them because they've already grown up as Warren Buffett's kids. Like obviously he still lives in the same house in Omaha and drives the same old car, but surely some of that philosophy of how dad is.
Apparently he's having a Mackie D's every day.
Every day.
McDonald's breakfast every day.
And Coke. Also Donald Trump.
Yeah, so what are we learning from that? Maybe a McDonald's breakfast every day keeps you fighting fit.
Yeah,
Because Trump's fucking old as well.
you wouldn't want to drive the old banger that Warren Buffett drives, though.
Man, I've driven a Honda Jazz for my whole life, basically.
What are you driving now, though?
Well, I'm driving a Tesla now.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
I
There
mean,
you go.
not for long.
Warren Buffett's in his 90s.
Not
He's still
for long.
driving the old banger.
I'm only.
You are in your 30s, mate. You do
Just
not.
for context,
Yeah.
I had a Honda Jazz, which I loved, and
Yeah.
everyone who knows me knows that I loved it.
Yeah.
My favorite car in the world.
Yeah.
I always said it was my favorite thing. And then what happened is my wife's father was like, I want the Honda Jazz back. And I was like, well, I don't want to be carless. And I worked out that you can get a Tesla for free on a business through corporate tax. So I didn't buy a fancy car. I'm just saying, you know. But I do drive a Tesla at the moment,
Yeah. Just to wrap that whole part up. If anyone's listening, what he doesn't do is drive a Honda Jazz. So you know
It's
Warren
true, I
Buffett.
don't
mate.
drive a Honda
You know
Jazz.
Warren Buffett.
No.
Want to know what kills big deals faster than anything? Security compliance. Honestly, it's a headache, and I don't know anyone who likes doing it. But there is a solution. One that makes security compliance easy. Vanta. Think of Vanta as your compliance wizard. They automate everything for SOC 2 and ISO 27001, turning complex security requirements into a simple, streamlined process. Over 8,000 companies, from startups to giants, trust Vanta to handle their compliance. Use Vanta so you don't get slowed down by security paperwork and focus on what matters, growing your business. Visit vanta.com/secret leaders now and get $1,000 off your first year.
So do you see this tweet from Elon Musk? He said, if you exclude security guards and maintenance personnel, the number of government workers who show up in person and do 40 hours a week is close to about 1%. So almost no one that works in the government actually shows up and does a full week.
Yeah, I mean that is if that's a true stat, I'm sure that it probably is true, but
It doesn't, I mean, once you say it, you're like, probably.
yeah, I mean that is that hurts hearing that actually,
Yeah, it's
because
a lot,
now
isn't
that I've heard that, I'm like, God, I reckon that is so true. And I reckon in his companies, as you know, when he took over Twitter, he had that like unbelievable, pulling apart of Twitter.
Yeah.
And he was like, stay here if you want to work like 70-hour weeks.
Yeah. And everyone's like, what a maniac. And Twitter has basically just become bigger and bigger and better.
Yeah, Twitter's certainly the most viewed it's ever been, I think, right now.
Yep.
And so it's interesting because if you took that approach to the government, I saw a clip by him the other day, which was like, we're not going to be horrible. We're not going to just sack people. We'll give people years of severance. But if you're not working hard for this country, you should be let go. And it's like, you can start to think, okay, I can understand that if we had an unbelievably motivated, incredibly hardworking workforce in the government, that's only a good thing for all of us. So it is a hard one to get your head around.
I think it's a tough love thing. At the end of the day, like, greater good. Like, you want people who are like super hardworking in your company and really care about the mission, and you want people that are super hardworking, care about your country, working for the government. Like, in reality, that is an aspirational view.
Like, all of your smartest friends, hardest working friends, if you could get all of them to work for the government, you'd be like, wow, the government would be in a way better position.
Totally.
And I'm not saying necessarily as politicians, but like civil servants,
I
right?
think it's one of the really interesting things about reform, which
But
actually
civil
has...
servants are amazing generally. But
Yeah, they are. But reform is really interesting because reform has the most momentum in British politics right now. And what they're basically doing, there's something like 4 MPs. Don't quote me on this. There's 4 or 6 MPs. There's a tiny amount of MPs and something like 15 employees. But almost all the employees are entrepreneurs. And they have by far, they've just overtaken Labour in loads of constituencies and most like popular party or whatever. Also, obviously polling. So what does it mean? But it's fascinating as they're building a new party from the ground up, and lots of people in there are entrepreneurs. Why? Because entrepreneurs kind of understand the full cycle of what it takes to build something with momentum, employ people, do it efficiently, because money doesn't just grow on government trees, all of that stuff.
Right,
so I think
Theresa
that's a good
May.
example. So then I guess cutting in here, I don't know if you saw, there was a tweet that was happening around the other day. I saw about an article. It was basically about like how important is the CEO? What should CEOs be paid? What is reasonable? So, is it ever justifiable to pay a CEO 100 million salary? I mean, even just the other day, by the way, talking about Elon Musk, the Delaware judge decided to rule against his big payout again.
yeah, ridiculous payout.
Yeah, ridiculous payout, but was going to be nothing. That was the game. And the shareholders voted for it. And a Delaware judge says no. Anyway, separate point. But what should a CEO be paid?
I hate to be the one who always gives this answer to everything, but I think it stands true. Like, that is the most nuanced topic ever, because I can have a CEO of a public company. I can have a CEO, founder and owner of their own company that they built from the ground up. I can have a CEO of a company that doesn't make much profit and pays its staff badly, but pays the boss really, really well. So like, there's so many different variations of that. Generally speaking, I do think that CEOs should be paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because a good CEO is accountable for the direction and the quality and the success of the company. That's
well, and the hiring, the people.
yeah, and so you get all these like hilarious things that I see online, like I'm working really, really hard and then have to teach my boss how to use like PowerPoint, and it's like, yeah, but your boss isn't thinking about PowerPoint. Your boss is thinking about how the company is successful, and so I think there's such a nuance. But I think good CEOs of good companies who show good growth for those companies are beneficial to everyone and therefore should be paid a lot. And if you're a founder, owner, CEO of your own company, that's up to you.
Yeah.
The world doesn't get to decide what you do, in my opinion.
Is 100 million too much?
Well, if the person owns the company, they can do what they want. Yeah.
I mean, I fully agree.
I feel like, for example, if you as an individual, and I'll take me for this example because I have to take a position on this, right, is if I have a company that makes 100 million profit a year and I own 100% of the company, it's within my right to pay myself 100 million.
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't feel like I should have a cap on that. I would have obviously paid all the tax on that,
Yeah,
and therefore created all the tax and paid all the tax, which is far more than an ordinary person would. But it is my choice at that moment, if I made 100 million, to pay myself 100 million. But and so I don't know if we should be able to force change on that, because otherwise what we're saying is you can be successful but not that successful. You can be successful but don't aim for the stars. Like I feel like we should encourage people to pursue greatness.
I agree, and then also just teach people good values. If you're going to earn 100 million, presumably you're going to spend it in quite a responsible way. You won't, not all of it. Of course, you'll do some stupid shit, but like hopefully also give loads to charity and do good in the world.
At a minimum, you've probably paid like 20 to 30 million tax on that.
I mean, at least in the UK,
yeah,
maybe 99 million.
Yeah, maybe 70 million if it's in the UK.
Exactly. It's also worth saying most CEOs at the level we're talking about, so paying yourself $100 million salary, you know, that is not the founder quite often at that point.
Yeah.
You know, founder, yes, has shares and
I
all
wonder,
that kind of stuff.
I wonder what that CEO, I don't know that story, but I wonder what that CEO had to do to unlock that 100 million.
As in...
Because if you're CEO of a public company, you have a board that makes those decisions. And so normally your compensation is tied to, if I get the company to X amount, then I get the salary. And so in that regard, if they had got it, like Elon Musk's thing was about, if I take the company to this absurd valuation that none of you believe, I deserve X.
And if I don't, I get zero.
Yeah.
And everyone goes, yes, okay.
And he did.
Yeah.
And so you go, well, he created all the value for everyone. But it's when you see the company. Okay, so the flip side is, and it's rarer and rarer and rarer. But the flip side is, obviously, if you have a CEO that is paid an absurd amount while the staff are being underpaid or like low paid, then it's fundamentally wrong.
Yes.
And the CEO shouldn't get that much.
Well, that's a difficult challenge though, because we're talking now here about $100 million. So at $100 million for a CEO, there is going to be no one, even if the best next paid staff member is on 5 million, which would be very unlikely because that's pretty unheard of outside of CEO. The disparity will be that. So the typical disparity is 196 to 1 pay ratio between CEOs and the average worker. So that's kind of the storm that's caused this problem, right? Is like, you know, should a CEO be paid 196 times what your average worker is paid? My answer to that question is, in the right companies, yeah, absolutely, because they'll be delivering, they'll be delivering all the value to employ all those people in the first place. Most of these examples was 196 per 1 pay ratio. You're going to be talking about companies with tens of thousands of employees whose job it is to not just maintain the rights and salaries for those tens of thousands, but to grow the company for more tens of thousands of employees.
I mean, 196 sounds a lot.
Sounds terrible and it sounds dystopian, but the reality when you get down
to
it,
maybe there should be
niche.
some leveling. There should be some appreciation and leveling and a more fair justification of the split of profits between staff members and what have you. But should the CEO be paid a hell of a lot more? I think the answer is definitely yes.
Yeah.
Because especially if you're doing a job that is like, I'm going to do this physical thing, or I'm going to do this, you know, computer thing that's pretty similar every single day. I'm going to do it every single day, versus the person who's probably doing, and CEOs work insane hours, travel non-stop, sacrifice their life normally for the thing. and carry the weight of the company on their shoulders and get fired if the company doesn't grow.
And this is a narrative. It's not 196 to 1 salary, as you said earlier. It'll be based on performance. So that's like if they hit the numbers and the whole company hits the numbers, which is, it takes an outlier talent to achieve that across an organization.
I mean, I suppose what we would want to see more of is like if every individual hit their individual target, they had the ability to earn a lot more, which never really happens in companies.
If you built Secret Leaders to $100 million company, I'd let you take 196 times more than me.
I mean,
Jay's a commie.
if Secret Leaders got to 100 million, that's a big podcast.
Yeah.
Call Her Daddy was 68 million,
Was it?
bought by Amazon.
Joe Rogan was $250 million.
Yeah, we ain't getting close to that, kids.
No, not yet. But does Joe Rogan deserve 196 times more money than Jamie, his producer? Yes, I'm afraid, Jay, he does. So, in conclusion, congratulations on Bitcoin 100. I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy for all of you. And let's see what happens with Trump. I'm feeling pretty bullish on crypto. I'm feeling pretty bullish on what Trump is going to do for American society and therefore economy, and therefore I think hopefully there'll be some trickle down economics, as they say to Britain.
I feel the world is going to shit and is on fire, but I also feel very confident about the commerciality and landscape for entrepreneurs, and that is genuinely how I feel inside. And so I don't know if I'm happy or sad about that, but that's my take on things right now.
Yeah, my take on things is, with all of these things, you've got to give them time. Like, I'm neither happy nor sad about Trump. I just think you've got to give it time. And last time, I was just sad, and I was wrong. So I feel like this time, I'm going to see how it goes before I form a strong opinion. Anyway, I'm Dan.
I'm Chris.
This has been Secret Leaders. Please don't forget to
subscribe to our YouTube and make sure you give us 5 stars on all the audio channels. Thank you so much. Have an amazing year.